Hey everyone, today we are in for a treat. Today we get to talk to Mike Weinberg. Mike is a consultant, he's a sales coach, he's a speaker, and he's on a mission to simplify sales. His specialties are new business development and sales management, and his passion is helping companies and individuals acquire new clients. Prior to launching his own firm, Mike had been the top producing salesperson in 3 organizations. No less than Forbes and OpenView, among many others, have named Mike a top sales influencer. Now, he's also the author of 2 bestsellers. His first book, New Sales Simplified, The Essential Handbook for Prospecting, and New Business Development has been a bestseller for 4 years. Just recognized, get this, as the number 3 most highly rated sales book of all time. Now, that's book 1. Book 2, his latest one, Sales Management Simplified, is being called arguably the best book that has ever been written on sales management and an unequaled blueprint for leading salespeople and building high-performance teams. Now, this is not Mike saying this, right? This is in quotes. This is what somebody else has said about this book. Now, Mike is a native New Yorker, but he's lived in St. Louis for 25 years. So, Mike, I got to know, man, Cardinals, Yankees, Mets, who's your team, dude?
It's the Cardinals. It only takes about a year of moving here, and it just the red Cardinal thing gets in your blood.
Oh.
So I was a Mets fan. I don't really miss the Mets. I miss the pizza. If we're really going to get into what drives me and why I'm fat, it's New York pizza. So
that's awesome. Yeah, well, see, being from Milwaukee and being a Brewers fan, you know who my favorite team is, right? It's ABC. Anybody but the Cardinals or Cubs.
Yeah,
Cardinals and Cubs. We don't really like the Cardinals either, and you guys don't like us, so it works out.
Yeah, we've had a couple issues with some of the cheating maybe coming out of Milwaukee the last few years. I'll leave it at that. But
wow, Milwaukee
we have
cheating?
Come on. Well, at least one of your star players.
Oh, right. Yeah. Ryan Braun took steroids to meet women. Let's just be honest.
Okay.
He was already a good baseball player.
All right. Well, we have a common enemy in the Cubs.
Yes.
That's why we're friends, right? So.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So cool. So, Mike, I got to tell you, man, I've been looking forward to this. I've told all my friends I get to talk to Mike Weinberg today. And I asked him for questions. I got to say, man, I'm disappointed. They're kind of scared. Nobody had any questions for you. So this are all from me. I'm excited that I get to, pick your brain and talk about stuff. And why I think one of the biggest things that we should talk about is this whole myth that cold calling is dead. Are you seeing that in your customers that they don't cold call at all, right?
No, not at all. It's so funny. I don't like the phrase cold calling itself because it brings up just bad emotions, and you almost get a visceral reaction to the phrase and dialing for dollars. So I don't like it. And today in the world you and I play in, and first of all, let me say thanks for having me because it's really fun to be here. And we've had some interesting interactions online, and we have all these crazy camps in our business. And you said this well to me in our preview to the show where we were just chatting it up. We all want the same thing. We all want to help salespeople sell more, make more money, bring more value to their companies and their clients. So it's fun to have this dialogue, and I think we'll probably build some bridges actually with other folks as we have this dialogue with each other. But there is a movement, and it's been going on for a long time, and it's that prospecting doesn't work, and old methods don't, and cold calling is dead. And what's dangerous to me about that movement and those who preach it is it's exactly what the non-aggressive, reactive, or lazy, or passive salesperson wants to hear. And you and I know this. There are a lot of people in sales roles who have gone through their entire career and done really well and never really had to go out and find business. They were either in a hot industry or selling a cool product, or they were managing a good book or a territory, and people were coming to them. But when it was on them to go out and find business, they really struggled. And people don't like prospecting. They don't like picking up the phone. So when someone preaches that cold calling is dead, it's like music to the ears for that. So like, I told you, I don't want to make those calls. And that's where I think we end up in these online battles, right? And these camps get drawn in. Do you agree with that kind of perspective?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah. I think it is, it's easy to write an article and post it up there, and then to respond to comments go chase down the likes, or if somebody sends you a LinkedIn request for you to now you can start the dialogue. I think that's easy relative to the other side of looking it up, figuring out who your customer is, picking up the phone, trying, for 10, 20, 50 times to actually get the person on the phone, to have a real conversation, to figure out an opener, to figure out a voicemail that might get returned, and to get yourself in somebody's inbox in a relevant way, or frankly, to knock on the door. I mean, that's ballsy, man. Edward Jones still does that. It still impresses me. That is the number one thing that they teach their young reps is you got to go out and you got to be present in your community, because that's where the money is spent. So why, but if you're lazy, right? If you're lazy, you're totally right, man. You're just looking for confirmation. You're not looking to be changed. You're not looking for transformation. You're looking for confirmation.
So let me say this, because this is really, first of all, this is fun. It's also encouraging, and I hope the whole audience, and I'm going to send a lot of people to listen to this, as obviously you are with your enormous following. I hope everyone hears what you're saying, and that you're a guy who's known as a guru in the social selling space, who people love because you're funny and you have the coolest multicolored glasses of anyone I've ever seen. And thank you for turning me on to your eyeglass supplier, because I'm jealous of your multifaceted eyeglass look. But here's a guy who's the champ of social selling, holding up Edward Jones as an example of a company that's doing well. And they really do. I mean, I live 1 mile. I'm in St. Louis, and we don't have a ton of great corporate headquarters here. A lot of them have left. But one that we do have left is Edward Jones, and they're about 1 mile from my house. And that is part of the practice. You become a new financial advisor, and before you get your little office in your community, you go knock on doors. And they don't do that like as an academic exercise. And I get it's a low success rate, and that's not ideal, but it's practice, and it builds a character and perseverance. And you know what else happens? Occasionally you knock on someone's door, or in the world we live in, we make a phone call to someone who has the issues that you address for your clients. And if you have a decent story and a decent personality, and you ask an intriguing question, you might end up with an opportunity to put in your funnel. You may not close them, but you're creating one. And most sales guys, as I look around why they're not succeeding, it's because they don't have enough opportunities in the funnel, and they're sitting around waiting for something to work when they could be proactively pursuing somebody. So I applaud you for that take. And I really do hope, and not trying to be funny here, that as folks listen to us, and we come from different camps on this, we're both going to be affirming the other person's tools and techniques, because we want people to sell, and you should use all means necessary and available.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not about one tool over the other. Those certainly, I would argue, if your customer is on digital, you should be finding them on digital. There's no doubt about it. I mean, any totally ice cold call, if you could warm it up, shame on you for not having warmed it up. Shame on you for not doing the research. Shame on you for making that horrible sales pitch to me that I get on LinkedIn all the time. Hey, do you need social selling training? Hey, no, I don't. Thanks for asking. Come on, right? Like, if you see that, that's the lead. That's the challenge there, is that if we look at the far ends of the spectrum, the ice cold calling, that's dead. If you're just smiling and dialing and expecting that, that it's going to now take 1,000 cold calls instead of 100 that it took 5 years ago, if you don't qualify your clients, you're just wasting your money on tech. And on the other end, the whole everybody's on social. Everybody's not on social. I wish they were. It'd make it a lot easier, but they're not.
No, and you bring up a really good point too when it comes to prospecting, because part of the battle, and this is what I'm dealing with when I'm doing workshops with sellers that do need to incorporate outbound telephone into their repertoire, along with all the other tools and social and inbound and things that they're using, trying to help them understand that you are not a telemarketer, and don't think of yourself like that. You're not in a call center surrounded by hundreds of people being fed calls by a dialer. That's cold calling. That's when someone says, oh, just, the people who make fun of it, oh, you're just calling the phone book. You're not calling the phone book. You have selected, if you're following the framework that I espouse in New Sales Simplified, your first step in your new business development framework is selecting really strategic targets. And the people who are really good at prospecting and getting meetings and creating opportunities are the ones who narrowly focus on the right strategic, finite accounts that look and smell like your best clients. And if you can build a relationship with them before you're ever calling them, and you're in touch with them on social channels, and you're scouring the news and getting alerts and paying attention to what their company is saying and doing, and what, all the stuff that could lead to a trigger and a reason to call them, you're so much better off. But please, when you're prospecting, it's not dialing for dollars, and it's not smile. You said it, and it was funny seeing your faces. We're looking at each other, even though we're just doing audio here. Smiling and dialing. That's not the mentality I want. I want a seller to see themselves as a consultant and a value creator who is motivated because the person they're pursuing probably has a need, or at least a less than optimal situation for which you may have the right solution. You should want to engage in a dialogue because you can probably help them. And if that's your mentality, that you're there to help them win. And my dad taught me that at a young age. He said, if your goal in sales is always to help your customer win, you will always have tons of business, and no one will see you as that low life, stereotypical used car guy. Right? Does that make sense? So we should be pursuing people because we care. We want to bring them value.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if I think about new sales, right? New sales is all about adding value. Old sales is all about adding volume and shutting them down, shutting your customer down because they don't have the same information you do. And when I say, no, hold on, what you need to consider this because you just, you're not as educated as me. You don't have this. Well, that's where the new sales, the new buyer's journey, they're coming in a lot of times as educated or more than the salesperson. You're not going to surprise them with information. What you're going to surprise them with is the fact that you have new ways to apply that information that's more helpful to them, that adds value and helps them sift through, oh yeah, well you said this, and that shows that it's got this feature. But if you don't have 8 kids, you don't need a school bus.
Yeah, I liked the way you positioned that whole piece. And I think that's one of the things that's getting sellers in trouble today. And it's why they're ineffective at either A, getting meetings, or B, when they do get that early stage discovery meeting, they are pitching and doing old school, product peddler. And it's really hard to be perceived, up high, like you're a consultant earning a seat at the table of the prospect when you're pitching product. That doesn't work, especially today. You said it really well. They don't need you for information. This isn't the old days where customers would take a meeting because you could share info with them they don't have. They have all the info available at their fingertips on many screens. You've got to bring value. You've got to push them out of their comfort zone. You've got to share an insight. And all that stuff's in a challenger sale articulated that really well. And I don't love all the challenger sales stuff, and I've got my issues with it. But that part, the data of who's winning the long, complex sale, you are helping your customer make decisions. You're navigating within that environment. You're going after different stakeholders. That's really different than being a product pusher who's trying to sell the same thing to everybody. So big difference.
Yeah, big difference and big impact on the bottom line too. If you can be a valuable piece, you're no longer selling a product, you're selling a solution, which is really, that's what your customers want. They want their problems solved. And seldom anymore are people, at least in B2B, are they unaware of their challenges? Are they unaware that something is broken? They're just not sure that there is a solution that is right for them. I think that's at least what I find in the sales that I do. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I think they know in most cases. Sometimes there's this, my friend Anthony calls it latent dissatisfaction. It's under the surface. And if we do a good job in discovery and probing, we can show them that they're dissatisfied even if they don't know it. But in most cases, they know exactly where they are. And they're hoping you can paint a picture of a better future and then put them on the path to getting there. And then that's why, Phil, aside from lack of top of the funnel activity, whether it's social or it's traditional prospecting, let's just call it top of the funnel to create opportunities, and the lack of that is what's causing a lot of issues for people in sales because they have lack of pipe. The next part where I see them really struggling is they come across as a commodity seller and a pitchman and as a vendor. And I have some clients, good old Midwestern manufacturers or distributors, and they're in tough businesses where procurement people trying to beat the crap out of them and put them in a vice and just squeeze, and they squeeze the fun and the creativity and the margin out of all the business. And you can't come across like this low level. You've got to sell at a higher level and talk issues and paint pictures of the future and be really consultative in terms of how you come across. Because leading with your product and leading with your features today is bound to get you commoditized. And frankly, you're not communicating that you as the seller bring any value to that customer if you're not part of the equation. If you're just pitching features and pitching price, what do you got at that point, right? You got nothing. You end up in the price game, and nobody wants to play the price game.
Yeah, no, for sure. The price game is a losing game, right? It's a race to the bottom that everybody loses except for the sole survivor, and that's no good for anybody.
So let me ask you a question, Phil, because this has been something that it struck me a couple of years ago, and it's been true ever since I noticed it. I have never been engaged by a company that was like the Walmart of their business. I've never been brought in to do training or consulting or coaching to a low price operator who sold on price. Have you?
No, never. There's no value, right?
It's not interesting. That's what's so interesting. So I realized, and it took me a while to kind of process that, and that's where you get to the place where you warn salespeople, stop whining and bitching and moaning that your price is too high and that you want your company to give you a deal. Because the truth is that high price is what pays you. If you had the lowest price piece of crap, just think about this, salespeople. If you had the lowest price junk, one, there's no money to pay you. And two, what do we need you for? Just hang the price out on the web and go, hey, we got the junk. We're low prices every day. Come get it. And we don't need high price salespeople. So be very careful, salespeople, when you think you're at a disadvantage because your price is too high. Every day you should thank God that your price is high. And your job is to justify that premium. And that's why you need a great story and a great sales process, because that's where you bring value to the customer and to your company.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where great salespeople help tell that story through the customer's eyes. They get that back to marketing in the form of case studies, in the form of reference customers that can then help make that more repeatable. Is that what you're seeing as well, or?
Yeah, boy, I love to repeat a phrase you just said there, because I think sellers need to hear this. How did you say it, Phil? You said they tell their story through the customer's eyes.
Yep, that's what I said.
Okay, well, think how different that is than the way most salespeople actually talk or message their customers. Most people lead with, we do this, we do that. I just wrote a post last week. It got a lot of traction, that salespeople should never answer this question. And the question is, what do you do? Or tell me about your business. Tell me, what do you guys do at your company? Because that puts you in a position where you're talking about your offerings. We do this, we do that, we provide, we supply. No one cares. No one cares what you do. They want to know what you do for them. What outcomes are you going to produce? So everyone, I would take Phil's counsel and say, if you're good, if you're going to articulate value, if you're going to get in and earn a seat at the table, you have got to talk about what you do in terms of the outcomes you achieve for your customers. Tell them why other clients, why other manufacturers, why other CFOs, why other whomever, fill in the blank with either the type of the company you sell or the position of the person you sell. Put that in there and then finish the statement with, they turn to us when, or we help them with, and then list out their big issues, the pains you take away, the problems you solve, the outcomes and results you help achieve. That's what Phil's saying. When you're going to be customer focused, don't talk about yourself, your great company, your culture, your technology, your processes. Nobody gives a rip. They care what's in it for them. So reshape your story so you're not self-absorbed, but you're about the customer and what they're trying to get out of it. And I promise you, it will completely change not only how you're perceived, but the dynamic of the sales conversation. Because instead of the customer resisting your pitch, their guard comes down and they're like, ooh, you help people with those issues. I've got two of those issues you'd mentioned. Let's talk about those. I mean, Phil, it's totally different.
Yeah, it is totally different. And that's where, I think as we're talking about, any sort of business, if we talk about those customer outcomes and we talk about those customer pain points and we talk about the ways in which we overcome them, for instance, with sales training, right? We typically help people find more leads. We help them close more business. We help them understand their customer better. We help them be seen as a thought leader. Those sorts of things, if those are of value to your customer, well, now I am of value to your customer. And I think when we instead focus on, well, I'm this and I'm that, it's totally a lose game, because what the customer is thinking, and I've heard them, sometimes they say this out loud when they mean to say it in their head, is, who cares? Like, I don't care that you think you're the best. That whole bio that I read, that would be great if you wrote that, but that's not what you wrote, right? That's what somebody else said. And if you're looking for someone else to say it, right, that's true thought leadership. For me to say, hey, I've got cool glasses. Well, that's like, so what, dude? Who cares? But if somebody else says, Phil has cool glasses, which makes him more memorable, then now, so I want to be more memorable. So that's a value. So perhaps I should try cool glasses. That's really what the customer is hearing in their head. Am I kind of hitting that?
Dude, it's huge the way you phrased it too. You said, I'm not sure I'm going to get your words right, but the what you were trying to articulate is the value comes because, in a sense, when you tell your story the way we're suggesting, it's like you're getting a third-party endorsement. Instead of saying we do this and we do that, when you say other manufacturers or other CFOs look to us when they have this pain, they're trying to achieve this result, they're looking for this outcome. That's like you saying, hey, people say Phil's got the best glasses, Phil's interesting. It's not Phil talking about Phil. I'm saying they look to me when. So I'm not bragging. The truth is these are the issues. And my customers are telling me we're helping them with. That's night and day different versus bragging about what you do. I love the way you frame that.
Yeah, thanks. So that's really the power of the endorsement. That's really the power of the case study. And so when we think about that, I mean, I get that a lot of times that's marketing that's going to help draw that together, but it's up to the salesperson, I think, to bring that back to marketing and say, here's what customers are saying. Here's the feedback we get, and pushing marketing to flip that focus from me focused to customer focused.
Really good.
So yeah. So let's talk more about that salesperson, because one of the things that we got engaged in here, Mike, that I think was fun was the whole notion that all salespeople need to write, or no salespeople need to write. That was one of the fun conversations we had. So Mike, all salespeople need to write, no salespeople need to write. Come on, where do you stand?
Yeah, we're both chuckling, I think, in our minds as we replay this fun little battle we were a part of. I don't think we were battling with each other, but there was a charged dialogue on LinkedIn a few weeks back. I'll start with my opening position, and then I think you should share yours, and then we can talk about where we both end up on this. My opening position is I challenged someone who wrote a sales expert. I'll call them a faux sales expert, who basically came out and said, in order for you to be credible, all salespeople must write articles so they can be credible with their customers. And my immediate snapback response was, you're a moron. Have you read some of the emails that salespeople write? Because not everyone can write. Some people can't write a sentence or a tweet accurately, let alone an article. So the thought that you have to be an author and well-written to be credible in a salesperson's eyes is false, it's dumb, and it's part of this hyperbole from the camp that wants to say you're better off creating content than you are prospecting. So that's where I started. I'll yield to you because you have a great angle on this too.
Sure. So I always say if a salesperson can write an email, they can write an article. So customers ask them questions. If they can respond to that message, then absolutely they should be writing an article. I mean, that's all it is they're just responding to an email.
Yeah. So what Phil and I have come to, and we're vehemently agreeing with each other, if you can write and you've got good content that you could put out, and there's an opportunity for you to build your own brand as an expert and your company's brand. And today it's become okay. The world has really shifted in the last dozen years or so, where you as a seller can have your own brand working under the umbrella of a corporate brand. And frankly, those who do that well really get a lot of business. I am all for that. And if you can write and your customers are looking for IP and you can bring value in that way and get noticed and set yourself apart, by all means do it. but don't do it because some moron on LinkedIn who was trying to get likes from lazy salespeople who won't prospect said all salespeople should blog and all salespeople should spend half a day commenting on LinkedIn, because when customers get 57% through their buying process, then they'll come reach out to you with money in hand ready to buy. It's all a lie. So you if you can write, do it. I said this to you in the pre-show, we were talking. I feel like a hypocrite at times when I preach this, because in full transparency, I don't pick up the phone today to get prospects because I have a line of people trying to get me to come help them, like airplanes going into O'Hare at rush hour, because of social media, because of intellectual property, because of best-selling books and blogs. And so while I am in that world because I'm a consultant and an author and people want to read my content, and I'm not bragging, it's the business I'm in. I get a lot of inbound demand that more than fills my funnel. In fact, it overflows. But I'm regularly telling salespeople, you need to do all methods and you need to prospect and be very strategic in who you go after. So I don't want to be hypocritical. And I am pro social. I am pro inbound. I am pro blog. I am pro write a book if you can. Like anything you can do like that, maybe it's a white paper, maybe it's a 30-second video. And I'm sure Phil can help you with that because I've watched some of Phil's videos and he's really fun and engaging. And it not only makes you smile, but he makes you think. If you can use any of those new tools that are available to get noticed, absolutely you should do it. But if it's an area that's way out of your giftedness, or it would take you 3 days to write a bad article that people would only then read and make fun of you, that's probably not the best use of your time.
Yeah. I think you're right on there. And let's stress the big word there, if. If you can write, if you can create content. Now, if you can't, you have alternatives. It is not about, you don't have a choice but to put some content out there. You don't have to write it. You can find a ghostwriter. You can absolutely lean on your marketing department. You can, you can deliver that in the way you want, or you should get better at your communication style. That is effective because things are changing, right? You should learn how to be a better emailer. You should, if you can, if you have, if your time horizon, that's the other thing, right? This is almost like an investment, right? If your time horizon is longer than 10 years that you're going to be in business more, you absolutely should work to improve that strength. But if you suck, right? This is my whole thesis on most of the stuff that I talk about, right? If you suck, if this is not your area of giftedness, then social media is just going to make you suck faster because people are going to read it and be like, you're a freaking idiot. And it's okay to not show that you're not a good writer. It is a bad idea to go on there and suck and expect that people will just see through that because that may be the only impression of you that they get.
Yeah. What he said. Dittos to Phil. That's good.
Thanks, Mike. So let's talk about about your book, right? The new Sales Simplified, because I think that's something that salespeople absolutely can benefit from. And I think the key there, I want you to think about the 3 words there that makes this a book. You need to think about new, right? Not old sales, not how did we sell in the 70s, right? Sales, you got to drive revenue. That's the whole goal here. And then simplified, not a complicated formula, something that is simple, that is doable, that is useful. So Mike, tell us first, what the heck was the genesis, the corn nugget of this book?
Yeah, well, it's funny the ask for the genesis. I wasn't looking to write a book. I was just fortunate at the time, and this was probably 6 years ago in 2011. I was just back in this business on my own. I had walked out of a job and started consulting and coaching again. And this time I was blogging and starting to get a little bit of a social following and getting connected with some thought leaders in our space. And I got contacted by a couple publishers that summer. There must have been a dearth of just basic sales books at the time because I wasn't looking for it. And it's odd to get a publisher reaching out to you when you're not really known. And I wasn't really known. I could write pretty well and had a little bit of a following, and ended up doing the proposal and got the contract for New Sales Simplified. I had been using this content on my own for the last probably 15 years between my first stint in consulting and coaching and then leading some sales teams. And I felt like I had good content, but I'd never imagined I'd write. what was crazy to me, fast forward 9 months, wrote the book, gave birth to it, very painful experience. Got a lot of help from the editor was a guy named Bob Nurkin, that my publisher was very helpful for a rookie author. But being totally transparent, Phil, and all you that are hearing this, when I turned the book in to real sales experts to go out and get endorsements, I cringed. Like, there was a part of me when I sent this book out to the Jill Conrads and the Art Subchecks of the world, who I respect really, and those are the 2 endorsements that ended up on the back cover. And they've been around the block a long time and they know what they're doing. There was a part of me that was like, they're going to laugh at this. This is way too simple. This is like 3rd grade level sales content. And I was kind of amused when the endorsements started coming back and people were raving, oh my gosh, you need this. This is back to basics. This is what's working. So I was excited to see the response from sales experts that then started reviewing it and blogging about it. And then it kind of got a life of its own. So that was the genesis. If you asked me when I signed up for this 6 years ago and started writing that book, would it have been named? I mean, a couple months ago, HubSpot named it the number 3 most highly rated sales book of all time. And I'm embarrassed by the other names that are on that list to even be in the breath of Dale Carnegie or Zig Ziglar and Daniel. I mean, it's crazy stuff. Neil Rackham. Like, I don't even get it. I'm just going to say thank you to whatever algorithm they use to put the book in that ranking. I'm just going to say great. And the best I can articulate why it's had the following and been a bestseller for all these years is because it's simple truth that you can implement easily. And there's a lot of nonsense today, and there's a lot of confusion, especially about prospecting and getting new business. And I did my best to cut through the clutter and just say, listen, there's a lot of people making a lot of noise. Here's the things that we know work. And let's be really simple. And let's get disciplined about our calendar and strategic about whom we target. And let's fix our story, like you and I already talked about, so it's others centered. And let's get better at using the phone and email and social to get meetings, because we need more meetings. And frankly, one of the things that makes me crazy today is there are a lot of people in our business that preach to strictly qualify your prospects before you even engage them for conversation. And what I think that results in is a funnel that's empty, because we're screening people too soon in the process, like looking for the perfect storm for someone that has money, need, and the timing is right. Then if you keep waiting, you're always going to end up late. So part of what I was preaching was get out there early, work your prospects before they're shopping. And this is where I love to debunk the myth that even the big agencies and the research companies preach today, that the buyer goes 57% through the buying process before engaging a seller. That's not true. It may be true of the people they study. Not in my clients, it's not true. We are out pursuing prospects before they're shopping because we've got a good strategic list, and we're not overqualifying. We're getting meetings with people because we can help them have a better future. And if we do a good job doing discovery, asking good questions, running a good sales call, not rushing to the demo like so many software people want to do. But if you have some business acumen and you can articulate value and you can ask good questions, you can stir the pot and disrupt the customer who's not yet shopping. You get there way before they're 57% through if you're proactive. So anyway, the long sermon that I took a couple tangents there, but the genesis of the book was simplicity and demystify prospecting. And I am blown away by the response to it. Even today, I mean, every day I get some letter from someone who used some technique and thanked me that, oh, now I'm getting meetings, or now I'm conducting better meetings. And that's awesome. So I'm thrilled that it's still having an impact.
Yeah. Well, all these years later, and the reason I brought that one up first is because it has stood the test of time. Which is fascinating to me, because it is not here's some flimsy tactics that you can do and yay, you're going to make money in the internet age, which I think is really important. I think I think, Mike, that's why you got the recognition you did, is because, I mean, really 6 years later, the fact that the concepts and the tactics in there still continue to work, still resonate with people. I think that says a lot, and that's rare, man. I mean, I can tell you, as I look around my office, I have few books that are more than a couple years old because things change. I mean, I think about, honestly, one of my favorite books of all time, Good to Great, and think about how many companies in Good to Great have failed. That book was supposed to be around forever. Jim Collins wrote this book based on 25 years of research that he wrote the book, and then it's like he jinxed those companies, like the Sports Illustrated cover jinx or the Madden, the cover, but that's rare. And I'm not picking on Collins because I think it's still a fascinating book and the concepts are still really good, but those case studies don't stand up. And so I think that's where, that's why your book still has some legs. That's why it still sells. That's why HubSpot liked it.
Well, first I'll say thank you. Second, we need to have a separate podcast on, you're obviously a sports fan, because anyone who brings up the Sports Illustrated or the Madden cover curse, you and I are brothers from a different mother. So that's a whole other conversation. Yeah.
Yep. But sure.
My boys and I will actually have that conversation about which poor slob is going to end up on the cover of, Madden, whatever year it is. And you don't want to be that guy.
No, well, Tom Brady this year. You think Brady's going to be cursed?
We'll see what happens. I don't know. I have so much respect for that guy. This is the first Super Bowl I actually rooted for the Patriots, just out of respect for their greatness.
Yep. Me too.
I've been against them every time, but I'm like, you know what? You can't win like this every freaking year with different players. And the only thing that's steady is the owner, the manager, and the coach, and the culture. And boy, that's a heck of a lesson for us in sales and consulting.
Well, it's keep after it with the systems and process that work. Make sure that you keep someone that you trust at the helm that can evaluate people in a subjective way, in an objective way, not a subjective way, right? Because we're not talking stats here. I really think, LeGarrette Blount, perfect example. He's gone to Philly. They have 4 running backs there, which tells me he's going to run for about 850 yards, tops, maybe get 6 to 8 touchdowns. I'm a fantasy nerd, so I watch how that is. I mean, he had 16 touchdowns last year. There's no possible way he does that in Philadelphia because the system is not set up to surprise them that way. And I really think, as far as sales leaders go, and, this is a good segue into your sales management book, Mike, and that is, as far as sales leaders and sales managers go, you have to judge everybody by the same thing, but yet understand that you're going to have some folks that call an audible and do a little bit of freestyle, but it has to be within the system that works. Because if you don't have the system that works, now you're just playing, sandlot football.
Yeah. Amen to all of that. And I'll just make a comment or two on the sales manager book, because I don't want to be pitching that. And this has been a great conversation about sales. I'll just share the genesis of the sales manager book, and I'm thrilled with the response to this one as well. What I learned the hard way, because I was a sales nerd and a sales hunter who turned consultant and trainer, I thought if I went into companies and taught them to sell and got them to improve at very important things, targeting, storytelling, getting meetings, conducting meetings, owning their calendar, all the stuff that everyone in sales, that's all the stuff in New Sales Simplified that it's crucial. I thought if I did that across the board, I could transform sales organizations for the long term. And what I learned the hard way, and I was naive, and I admit it now, and it's been a 12-year journey since I had this epiphany. You can't transform an organization by coaching up the salespeople. If you don't deal with the leadership and the culture and the talent management, you're banging your head against the wall because you can't fix it at the mid-level. And so what I realized, and this is part of the consulting more than it was in my training, very often I would get asked to come into a company who would readily admit they have a sales problem, in air quotes. And then what would happen after a month of being around, and I would see that, yes, there was some sales problem. The salespeople could do better, however, the bigger issue always led me back into the leader's office, who was the one who engaged me in the first place. And it was that person's attitude or their culture they were created, or their stupid compensation plan, or the way they treated salespeople, or the fact that they had one salesperson doing 19 different jobs, and they put farmers and zookeepers in hunting roles, and they buried the sales manager in crap, and the sales manager never did accountability or went in the field or led good team meetings. And I realized that if you don't get the stuff at the top right, and as one of my mentors said, when it's broken at the top, it's broken. I don't care how freaking good my sales coaching and content is, it's not transforming anything. And so I wrote Sales Management Simplified, pissed off. And the whole first half of the book is me venting, telling true stories. I didn't name names, but telling true stories about real companies that I was brought into that had sales leadership dysfunction. And I did it to protect the honor of salespeople and go, hold on, you're not crazy. Some of this is your company's fault. So the first half of the book is this wake-up call that says, please read this and don't get mad at your salespeople if they gave you the book. Get mad at me for stirring the pot. And then the second half of the book is this uber simple framework of, hey, these are the sales leadership high value activities. If you want the kind of culture that produces long-term results, then you better change the way the sales manager spends their time. And sitting in corporate meetings and playing administrator and chief firefighter ain't going to get it done. So free up the manager to do one-on-ones and to go in the field and to prep and lead good team meetings. And let's get smart about talent management and stop making hunters do all this cleanup work and stop asking zookeepers to go hunt, because most of them are vegans and all they want to do is care for the customers and animals under their care, not kill them. So this, I mean, I could go on for a long time, but so that's where that book came from. And I'm so thankful that I'm getting phone calls for consulting from that book, because I did really take a risk by calling out the very people who hire me and going, hey, look in the mirror, buddy, because yeah, your salespeople could do better, but honestly, you could do a lot better. And if we get you to do better, everything's going to change in your company. Yeah. So that's the best I could say it.
No, that's good. And you know, the subtitle should be "Fish Stink from the Head Down," and so do you. Because that's it. I mean, when it comes to sales leaders, and I would say, you know, sales leaders often are the worst because they were a great salesperson, but they don't understand people. And so that's where I think, you know, I do think your book is really helpful. So for anybody who's listening and who's a new sales leader, I'd encourage you to pick this book up soon. If you're thinking you might ever want to be a sales leader, don't be afraid by the first half of the book that has these horror stories, because frankly, it's instructive, and I would call them reverse case studies. They're how not to lead. And that's helpful. That's important, because you need to understand how not to do something sometimes, because everybody is an example, whether for good or for bad. So let's take these rotten examples and let's use them for good. And remember that even bad fish, when they're cooked long enough, sometimes become tender. So.
And on that note.
Yeah, and on that note, so. Bump. Yeah. So last topic here before we wrap up, Mike, and that is the whole idea of outbound. We talked about in the green room here how, you know, we saw 3 organizations, 3 respected sales training, sales focused inbound organizations have job titles that are job descriptions, I mean, when they're hiring, that include outbound, including HubSpot and LinkedIn, which is just fascinating. So, Mike, outbound isn't dead. It's just being transformed. Is that kind of the message here that we want to leave folks with?
Yeah, and that's the rational, intelligent adult response. So in the midst of all the hype and craziness on social channels where everyone's trying to plant their flag and get a following, listen to the way Phil phrased that. And I love that you brought up the proof. This is the reality. Guys, outbound still works. It's an important part of the mix. And I'm not outbound only. And just like Phil is not social only. We want you to use all means necessary to bring value, to get noticed, to get in front of customers. But we are both saying to you, be wary, be very wary of the expert telling you that only their way works, because I guarantee you they have an agenda and probably are trying to sell you something that happens to align exactly with what they're selling. So be very careful. Yeah, outbound's alive. And when I found out that HubSpot, who is the king of inbound marketing, a company we all respect for many different reasons, that they have an outbound sales team. And the reason I know that is because their vice president of sales told me that. And then he told me that my book, New Sales Simplified, is one of the books that they use with their team. And one, I was flattered, but more than flattered, I was floored, because the inbound marketing king has an outbound team. And if you don't need any more proof than that, sellers. So don't drink the Kool-Aid. Do it all. Yes, use your inbound. Yes, put out content. Yes, connect early and follow and befriend and start relationships and do research online and all the things that Phil is an expert in and he would espouse. But then at times you are going to pick up the phone and call someone and say, I'd love to visit with you. You know, we're helping a lot of people that look like you. And I use that word visit because it's kind of friendly. And you push and you actually can convince someone they need to meet with you. And the best sellers do that frequently and they block out time. So yes, outbound's alive. And we've both given you here all the proof and reasons to show you that you need to incorporate all these aspects into your sales effort.
Yeah. So don't give up, folks. Don't lose hope. Know that you need to have full scale selling. You need to make it all happen. Own that calendar of yours. Be intellectually honest and do the right things because they're going to work. So Mike, as we wrap up here, any last bits of wisdom that we can leave folks with that we didn't cover that you want people to take back?
Oh, wow. The one thing we didn't really get into was just the calendar and focus. So this will be it's not going to be a wrap up. It's going to be a new point.
Sure.
But I just want to drive it home. Every single thing that Phil and I discussed today is academic and meaningless if you don't put it into action. So what we would both strongly encourage you to do is block out time on your calendar for proactive selling. Stop living in your inbox. Stop sitting on your ass. Stop volunteering for the July 4th barbecue at the company so you can stand out there and sweat over bratwurst all day. You are a high-value salesperson. You got to own your calendar. Take back your time. If you would spend more time in proactively pursuing prospects through whatever means necessary, including social and the phone and everything else, and one of our friends online calls it the social phone. I get it. Like, you would have more business. That he who turns over more rocks creates more opportunities. So don't sit there with your feet up, smoking a pipe, pontificating about all these sales theories. Just get into action and keep it simple. People who tell you how complicated sales are, they're confused themselves, and they're either using that complexity as a smokescreen to hide so you can't see their bad effort or their poor results, or they're making it sound complicated because they're frankly a mess and they don't know what to do. So keep it simple, get into action, and listen to people who've been there and done that and have real clients and know what they're doing and model what they're doing. That's the best way I'd like to leave it.
Awesome. Great stuff, Mike. So this has been Mike Weinberg. If you're looking for Mike, you can go to newsalescoach.com. He's got 2 great books, New Sales Simplified, Sales Management Simplified. He is an expert that you can trust, that you can listen to, and that you can learn from. And most importantly, that you can take actionable steps towards reaching your quota, achieving your goals, and living a better life as a salesperson. Mike, this is great, man. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, honored to be with you. Thank you so much, Phil. Thanks for what you're doing for the sales community.
My pleasure. Back at you.